Well, hello there. It's almost midnight, and it's good to see you again. This is Ren Presents. I am your host, Ren, and as the witching hour approaches, we continue with the hazards of the old one. Part 3, Chapter 19, The Ghost. Last week, we saw the bridge crew aboard the Seeker in a deadly situation where the floor of the bridge was all of a sudden crawling with deadly red-hot Los Capricos weapons activated and ready to go. One false move and they would activate, and these lengths of sharp undulating wire would come out and slice and dice any flesh nearby. It could have been a tragedy, and the helmsman, while fixing her boot, tugged on the wheel and put the Seeker into a nose-down attitude heading into the planet Xandar's atmosphere. Kind of a bad move to make. Now she's stuck there and she can't right the ship, and they were about to burn up. Fortunately, the Duke had a solution. Well, we'll just do a quick draw and shoot the Red Haws with our energy weapons and melt them in an instant before they can kill anybody. And that's what they did, and they made it through alive, and then the helmsman was able to right the ship at the last second. Also, King Balor of Xandar is leading Captain Davidge and his party to a communications device on the 9th level of Xandar Keep that his sister, Princess Marlith, used to use to contact the very same Captain Davidge. Even though, after their failed wedding, they were officially and quite publicly enemies, behind the scenes they were still somewhat tender to each other, and Princess Marlith, using this communications device, would contact Captain Davidge all the time. Sometimes they wouldn't say anything, they would just look at each other. Sometimes they would talk, and their public battles was almost like a ruse or an act. But towards the end there, it started to get real, especially when Sig showed up. But she would use this device all the time to talk to Captain Davidge. Problem is, there's a bunch of black hats and a bunch of Holgismen and thousands upon thousands of STTs between them and the communications device. Balor says he's going to make a diversion, whatever that means. So that's where they are on the planet's surface. This week, we continue Chapter 19, The Ghost, where we get to the bottom of where these Red Haws came from and who disconnected the helm and who captured Carahil. I'm hoping you already know. You should know. But if you don't, it will be spelled out right now. So let's proceed immediately. Part 3, Chapter 19, The Ghost. Verlin stormed into the conference room. The Duke, Tori Jane, the Ruthvens, and Lady Poe were taking their seats. Peter offered Poe a chair and properly seated her. He then sat down next to her. "All right, I want to know what the hell just happened," Verlin sputtered. Her Howe accent became progressively more pronounced as she got more and more angry. The Duke opened his duster and unclipped his brace. He set it on the table, pulled out a red haw, and handed it to Verlin. "Red Ha," the Duke said, his regal East Ester accent bearing quite steady. "It's a Los Capricos weapon, and it's quite deadly, I assure you." "Don't worry about that one, Lieutenant. It's not enabled." Verlin carefully examined it with her long fingers. It was a small brass capsule about 5 inches in length. Its surface was etched with bold relief. The swirling designs were indicative of the North Pinthrop area of Onaris, which she had come to know in the Marines. It was very heavy for its size, weighing about 5 pounds. "I think Carahill helped us," Poe said. "That box I opened was from the other day when he wanted to give us a useful gift. I think if those bubbles hadn't been there, we would have never have seen them. We might all be dead now." "Yes, food for thought," Verlin said, setting it down on the table. "But the question remains, how did these things end up on the bridge in the first place? Duke, I should have you thrown into the brig for this." "For what?" Tori cried, indignant. "For nearly killing everybody on the bridge with your careless use of these weapons." "Now wait a second," Tori said, getting angry. "Let's not be hasty here, Lieutenant," the Duke said. "I only have 5 Red Haws, and as you can see from the one in front of you, and the 4 remaining in my brace, they're all here. Nobody else carries them." Verlin was skeptical. "You expect me to believe that?" Tori Jane stood up. "Yes, Lieutenant, we do. You're an acting first officer competing for Kai's job, trying to impress the captain. I suggest you do a better job of showing a bit of courtesy in the face of a League Duke who has saved this ship on 2 occasions now." Verlin picked the Red Haw back up in frustration. "I'm sorry, you're correct. Then if I may pose a question, sir, where did they come from?" Sage rustled in his seat. "Lieutenant, I believe the answer here is clear." She whirled around to face him. Sage was bookish and studious-looking, not nearly as handsome as his 2 brothers. "I'm listening," she said. Verlin was trying to sound confident and authoritative. She hoped she wasn't overdoing it. Sage adjusted himself in his seat and began. "There have been several unusual and unexplainable events recently that I have taken note of, this incident being just the latest. I believe we have been infiltrated and are, even at this moment, under attack." She moved across the table and sat down next to Sage. "Please go on, sir," she said, trying to soften up a bit. He continued, "Allow me to bring you fully up to date, Lieutenant, so that my thoughts may present themselves more clearly. 2 days ago, we were attacked by a group of toughs as we were in the process of picking up Lieutenant Kylos in the Tartan lands of Cana. I would hardly call Ellington and his lot toughs," the Duke said. "Regardless, they were certainly not an overly skilled or stealthy lot, yet they got the drop on us hard. Where did they come from? I recall no ship in the area as we departed, and I made it a point to look. Also, how did they follow us to the pickup location at all, as we were under a full painted cloak?" "I was wondering about that too," Tori said. To continue, yesterday in this very conference room, Mr. Carahill disappeared right in front of our eyes in a flash. "Oh, he likes to be mysterious. He'll probably be back right in the nick of time. It makes him feel special," Poe said. "Well, that might be the case. However, something the captain mentioned at the time gives me pause. He said he saw a ghost exiting the room, as I recall," Peter said. "Correct. And if the captain's sight is as good as we've heard it to be, then what did he see? And why should a ghost need to exit through the doorway? I know I saw it open and close by itself. Clearly the captain saw something or someone exiting the room through the door right after Mr. Carahill vanished. And I'll wager it was someone under cloak who can't waft." Verlin stood up and went to the door, looked at it and thought. "Lieutenant," Sage asked, "what happened with the helm on the bridge?" Verlin took a breath and sighed. "The helm somehow got completely disconnected." Sage stroked his chin. not something that normally happens by itself. So we have the tufts on Cana, the disappearance of Mr. Carahill, the ghost, the sabotaging of the helm, and finally this most recent near disaster on the bridge. I believe, given all this information, that we are most certainly under attack, and I am convinced the identity of the attacking culprit is obvious. Sage stopped. Everybody looked around at each other. Verlin smiled. She found she was beginning to like these fellows. Well, Lord Ruthven, please, disclose the identity. The attacking weapon on the bridge was Red Ha, and they were the real thing as I got a good hard look at them, though they were covered with bubbles. The Red Ha is the Los Capricos weapon of House Milton. Therefore, the attacker can only be one person. Hershey, Lord of Milton. Lord Hershey of Milton? The accountant? Verlin gasped. You mean the scary-looking guy with the wig in the other house? Tori asked. The same. Either he or one of his associates. Ellington and his lot were Lord Milton's personal servants, and as the captain said he saw a ghost, I am inclined to assume that Lord Milton himself is at work here, as he likes to present himself as a withered old man and cannot waft. Sage, the Duke said dryly, I see where you're going with this, and it makes a great deal of sense, but you're forgetting one small point. Lord Milton is about 12 light years from here. Sage stood up and made his way to Poe. Lady Blanchford, he said, I have been told you wear a wondrous silver medallion, one that calls Mr. Carahill when pressed. Oh, yes. Poe pulled her medallion out of her gown. It sparkled on its chain. May I perhaps see it for a moment? She took it off and gave it to Sage. He examined it. And all that needs done is to press it, and Mr. Carahill comes? Yes, though he doesn't come instantly. He takes his time. I see. And have you tried it since his disappearance? Yes, but he hasn't shown up. Sometimes he takes a while. Sage showed the medallion to the Duke. Does this look familiar, Duke? Yes, I used one similar to that once. I called him and he came and he broke the darkness around Tori. Tori Jane winked at him. What happened to that particular medallion? The Duke thought a moment. I put it back in my drawer in the study. I never saw it again. I was busy with my lady here. I believe Lord Milton has since stolen it and has discovered its workings, duplicated its functions via technological means. I believe he is fully able to appear here at his leisure. In fact, he could be here with us even at this moment. Everybody at the table looked around dubiously. An orderly came into the conference room. He was holding a small slip of folded paper. Lieutenant, he said, message for you. Verlin took the paper, opened it, and read. Crewman, she said, where did this come from? It was sitting on the rail by the op station. I thought it might be important, so I brought it to you right away. What is it, Lieutenant? Sage asked. Verlin ran a hand through her blonde hair. It says, all you fleet fart sniffers and Duke-worshipping dung doodlers are about to die. Signed, Lord Milton. Verlin turned to Sage. Lord Ruthven, you really think Lord Milton might be here with us even at this moment? I believe so, yes, he said, looking around. Can he cloak? Yes, that is the sole gift available to him, though he can cloak extremely well. The Duke shook his head. Sage, that's not quite correct. Lord Milton can do a lot of things that are gift-like, without being gifts, per se. Verlin looked around the room. This medallion you believe he's using, how does it work? She asked. Sage thought a moment. Well, it must be... There was a blam! Gunsmoke filled the conference room. Sage fell out of his seat, holding his chest, blood oozing out of a gushing chest wound. Tori Jane sprang to his side. I'm gonna cloak all of... Blam! She was hit in the arm. Blam! She fell, clutching her throat, a terrible gaping wound near her Adam's apple. She gurgled. Blam! The Duke fell, struggling to right himself, shot to the belly. He weakly drew his Grenville 40 and then dropped it. Blam! Someone took a shot at Lady Poe, but in a blur, she silver-teched the large caliber bullet heading towards her head out of thin air. Peter drew his Herkimer. Blam! Peter! Poe cried and silver-teched the bullet. It was headed for his skull. Blam! She caught another bullet, heading this time for her throat. And another lightning move, Poe threw a silver-tech net in the direction of the blasts. There, a man-shaped form appeared under the silver. Verlin rose and drew her brand-new SK. She flipped to auto and peppered a long shot at the person there. Bullets bounced off the silver-tech and inadvertent shield. The shape staggered to the door and went through it. Crawling, bleeding, the Duke moved to Tori's side, her blue eyes wide with panic, her ruined throat spurting blood. Hospitallers to the bridge conference room! Urgent! Verlin shouted. Come! The Seeker has been boarded. I want the Marines to case the entire ship. Who are we looking for? The comm asked. Hershey, Lord of Milton, and he is armed, undercloaked, and extremely dangerous and possibly wounded. Call out the sisters as well. I want a coordinated effort, and sound general quarters to all personnel not currently on duty. Aye, ma'am. Tori's life pulsed out into the Duke's hands. Shot in the throat, every beat of her heart led her a bit closer to death. Her throat was a shot-through, bloody disaster. She convulsed, her dimming eyes bulging out of their sockets. Nearby, Sage was turning a sickening gray color as he bled out, Johnny and Peter desperately trying to slow the bleeding. Verlin spun around, seeing 2, possibly 3 people dying right in front of her. Hospitallers! Status! She roared, still holding her SK. Poe knelt down next to Peter and swirled her fingers. Soon, after several moments, 2 big-eyed, happy-faced silver fish sat in her hands. Here, Peter, quickly. Place fins on his chest, and this other one is for Tori. This is fins? Like what you used to save Countess Blanchford? Peter asked, looking at the comical big-eyed fish. Yes. The Duke propped himself up on his elbows and held out his hands. Please, Lady Poe, I'll put it on her. Verlin knelt down and looked at the strange silver fish. Is this really going to work? She asked. Yes, Poe said with growing confidence. Yes, he will. Fins will do his job. The Duke took Fins into his hands. Fins blinked at him. Quickly, he put the fish on Tori's mangled throat. Fins sat there for a moment in the stream of pulsing blood, and then disappeared into the wound with a splash. Several moments later, Tori stopped convulsing, stopped rasping for breath. As the Duke and Verlin watched, the heartbreaking collapsed structure of her throat returned to normal, and the ragged wound sealed. Soon, several words appeared on her neck in a fun silver script that shimmered in alternating colors. Fixed by Fins. Kissing her hand, the Duke could ever so dimly feel her squeezing back. She tried to smile, but then fell unconscious. Johnny, how's Sage? The Duke said, beginning to feel real, roaring pain from his wound. Okay, he's okay, Johnny said. Bullets out, the bleeding stopped, it worked, just like Lady Poe said. Peter and Verlin rolled the Duke over and saw the bloody wound in his belly. Lady Poe's fingers again spun. Your turn, Duke, she said, and Madame Tori Jane's arm needs fixing. The Duke lay there, Lady Poe kneeling next to him. I am in your debt. For Tori's life, Sage's life. She continued working. If I kept track of such things, I'd say we are even for getting me out of that horrible place. But since I do not, I am glad I am able to help. Blood was darkening the floor, both from the Duke and from Tori's arm. In a moment, Poe had 2 more Fins sitting big-eyed and happy in her hands. She handed one to Peter, who quickly parted the Duke's shirt and placed it on his wound. That was a big gun, probably an Inzeroth D2A or DFQ, Peter said. He smiled at her. We'd be dead without you. You, Lady Blanchford, are an angel. Poe smiled. She took the other Fins and placed it on Tori's shoulder. My whole life, people have been taking care of me, protecting me. It feels good to finally be able to give back when I can. A moment later, the bullet came skittering out of the Duke's wound, and a bullet literally flew out of Tori's arm like a nugget of dirt from a gopher hole, and the ragged wound sealed. Fixed by fins appeared on her arm a few moments later, like a merchantman tattoo. "I'll have to adjust that," Poe said. No, Peter said. It's a nice touch. If Tori could speak right now, I'm sure she'd be proud of it. Verlin, seeing it all for herself, still couldn't believe it. The door to the conference room opened and several Hospitallers entered. The Duke, Sage of Ruthven, and Madame Tori Jane, all to the dispensary now for examination, she said. "What has happened?" one of them asked. "Shot by large caliber pistol." Peter picked up one of the bullets. Yes, an Inzeroth D2A by the looks of it. A very large caliber weapon. The Hospitallers quickly inspected the three and waved their scanners around. "We don't understand these readings. They all appear to have been shot, as you say, but their wounds look to be healed. They were given a novel field treatment as we awaited your arrival. Lady Poe Blanchard will debrief you later. Now, to the dispensary." They collected the three and were off, leaving only fresh bloodstains on the carpet. Verlin, still holding her SK, finally holstered it. "That was smart work, Lady Poe. Yes, very smart work. If I hadn't seen it for myself, I'd not believe it." She picked up one of the bloody bullets. "And I agree with you, Lord Ruthven. It does appear to be a bullet from an Inzeroth D2A. Behind, dug in the wall, was the bloody bullet that had passed through Tori's throat. I know my weapons." "You are very knowledgeable, sir," Poe said as she scooted next to him and put her head on his shoulder. And with that, we conclude Part 3, Chapter 19, The Ghost. So, it's finally been revealed. Lord Hershey of Milton is, in fact, the culprit behind all the strange doings on the ship and the abductor of Carahill. How he's able to disappear on the ship, it's not quite fully known yet, although they suspect that he somehow copied Lady Poe's Carahill medallion via technological means, though we haven't seen how he does that specifically just yet. We will in further chapters. And yes, while they were talking, he was standing right there in the room with him, kind of an ominous sort of thing. And when they started talking too much, he pulled out his gun and just started shooting. He didn't expect Lady Poe to be able to snatch bullets out of the air with her silver tech, but whatever. And he also didn't count on her being able to heal them with her Finn's fish. Very handy thing to have in a pinch. So, with the fins applied, looks like Tori, the Duke, and Sage are going to be okay. Now, we have to take care of matters down below. Next week, Chapter 20, Marless Communicator. So we'll see what happens down there, see if Captain Davidge and his party are able to get to the communications device and signal the ship with all these black hats and Holgismen standing in their way. Until then, this is Ren Presents. I am your host, Ren. Peace out.